Thank you for tuning in today's talk show. I am your host for today, Stephanie Cyril Eze from Edu Capital School. Today we are going to talk on the topic child trafficking and abuse. We're going to talk on what is a child, what is child trafficking, what is child abuse, causes of child trafficking and abuse, effects of child trafficking and abuse, what are the rights of a child, what is the ideal model of a child, who is the ideal model of a child, preventions of child trafficking and abuse, call on government, stakeholders, religious and traditional leaders. With me today in the studio, I have great intellectuals. By my right, I have Issa Mukhtar Yunus from El Kanemi College of Islamic Theology. By my left, I have Binta Suleiman Umar from Innovative School, and beside her, I have Ahmed Mohammed Sandar, also from Al Kanemi College of Islamic Theology. You're all welcome to today's talk show.
Thank you.
So, starting with you, Ahmed, can you please tell us what is a child?
It's a pleasure being here as a guest. According to the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, a child is any person under the age of 18 years. Also, Child Protection Code 2010 defines a child as every human being below the age of 18 and that has not yet reached the age of maturity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. With you, Isa, can you please tell us who is a child?
Thank you. I really appreciate being here as your guest. A child is simply and clearly defined as a young person of either genders which he or she haven't reached the age of maturity. But according to the World Health Organization, a child is defined as a person who is 19 years or below, unless the national law defines that person to be an adult at an earlier age. However, in these guidelines, when a child falls into the age of 10 to 19 category, they are referred to as adolescents. Now, make a reference to the Nigerian Constitution. Nigerian Constitution defines the child as a person who is 12 years or below. But the new draft decree put into law has now set the age of a child to be 18 years below. It is pertinent to note that the age definition of the convention has already been in use by the municipal law. This definition is according to the National Child Welfare Policy of 1989. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isa. Now, with you, Binta, can you please tell us who is a child?
Well, a child biologically is a human being between the stages of birth and puberty, or between the developmental stages of infancy and full growth. But the legal definition of the child is generally refers to a minor, otherwise a person younger than the age of majority. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Binta. So, back to you, Isa. Can you please tell us what is child abuse?
Child abuse includes all forms of physical or emotional abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, negligence, commercial or other exploitation, which results in actual or potential harm to the child's health, survival, development, or dignity in the context of relationship responsibility, trust, or power. Although there are many formal and acceptable definitions of child abuse, but I offer you this, Mrs. Presenter, as the guide or information over the topic child abuse or neglect. Child abuse consists of any act of commotion or omission which endangers or impairs a child's life or development, which is often represented by injury or series of injuries which cannot be reasonably explained or which appears to be non-accidental in nature. The 5 forms of child abuse are the physical abuse, when there is infliction of non-accidental damage done to a child. This includes the kicking, the hitting, the slapping, the biting, the whipping, the choking, as you know. And we also have the sexual abuse, when there is a sexual act between an adult and a child. A clear example of this is the rape practices. We also have the neglect, that is failure to provide the child's physical need, which includes inadequate shelter, inadequate provision of food and water, and we also have inappropriate hygiene, and we also have denial of medical care. We also have emotional abuse, when there is any act or behavior that interferes with the child's mental health, or let me say social development, which includes the yelling, the screaming, the shouting, bad, let me say, a bad comparison of
Yeah.
that child with other children, and we also have neglect, or let me say, bad name callings. We also have when you refer that child to as a bad person, or telling him he is worthless or she is worthless, or
Downgrading the child.
yes, and we also have the lack of parental care, and or let me say parent-child intimacy, and we also have child trafficking as a form of child abuse. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a wonderful enlightenment, Isa.
Thank you.
Ahmed, can you please tell us what is child trafficking?
Child trafficking is a form of human trafficking, and it is defined by the United Nations as the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, and received kidnapping of a child for the purpose of slavery, forced labor, and exploitation. It is the action or practice of illegally procuring and relocating a child, typically for the purpose of slavery, forced labor, and sexual exploitation. Child trafficking occurs when a child is taken away from safety and exploited. A child may be forced into many dangerous and illegal situations such as slavery, forced labor, sexual exploitation, or prostitution. International Labour Organization (ILO) estimates that 1.2 million children are trafficked each year, and in 2014, a research conducted by the Anti-Human Trafficking Organization reported that internet sites like Craigslist are often used as tools for conducting business within the industry, and that 70% of child trafficking supervisors were at some point sold online. Sexual exploitation and forced labor are the most commonly identified forms of child trafficking, and more than half of the victims are female. Many other forms of exploitation are often thought to be underreported. These include domestic servitude, forced marriage, organ removal, and the exploitation of a child in begging and sex trade. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. Well, child trafficking is a form of child abuse. According to what Ahmed here said, child trafficking is an illegal act that affects a child negatively. Thank you very much. With you, Binta, can you please tell us the causes of child trafficking and abuse?
Well, child trafficking varies from country to country, but it usually preys on vulnerable situations. As people in vulnerable situations are looking for a way out, and in their desperation can fall prey to human traffickers. We see this in multiple different circumstances, but the following four scenarios tell us the examples of the conditions and realities people may be fleeing. First, leaving a place of poverty to gain wealth, as poverty is one of the main causes of child trafficking. Victims of child trafficking usually want to get out of their situation, so they risk everything to leave the place that sees them made in poverty. This gives human traffickers bait to lure the victims into moving to another country. Upon human traffickers lie, promising jobs and stability in order to recruit their victims. Upon their arrival to another state or region, captors take control, and more often than not, they are held in places where they do not want to make their home. The practice of entrusting poor children to more affluent friends or relatives also creates vulnerability to child trafficking, as some parents sell their children not only for money, but in hope that their children will have a promising life with more opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, viewers, poverty also play a role. It's also a cause or causes of child trafficking and abuse. Back to you, Ahmed. Can you please tell us the effects of child trafficking and abuse?
Child trafficking and abuse has very many negative effects, to include, firstly, trust issue. It is very difficult for an abused and trafficked child to trust other people, especially when his close relatives are being responsible for the abuse.
That's
If
true.
one's relative cannot be trusted, who else can?
Very true.
An abused and trafficked child will be unable to form strong relationships nor maintain a healthy relationship. Secondly, emotions. An abused and trafficked child will be unable to vent his feelings and emotions positively.
Mm.
This results in bottling up emotions and can give way to many psychological problems. An abused and trafficked child often resort to drug and alcohol during adulthood to assuage the pain as he can suffer from anxiety and depression.
Okay.
Thirdly, feelings of being worthless. It is very difficult to overcome negative feelings if one is constantly being rated or even beaten up. An abused and trafficked child harbor feelings of inferiority complex and thus settle for lesser education and low-paying job as they grow. Lastly, low self-esteem. An abused and trafficked child will be feeling unsure of himself and he'll be thinking others or the society won't accept him, so he won't join in.
Yeah.
Likewise, an abused and trafficked child, others may treat him badly and he may have hard times in standing up for himself. Similarly, sexually abused child will not ignore the sinfulness of the act and the stigma attached to it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
That's true. Well, viewers, according to Ahmed, an abuse of a child develops low self-esteem, lack of confidence in that child. Thank you very much, Ahmed. Back to you, Binta. Can you please tell us what are the rights of a child?
Well, children's rights include the right to education, right to health, right to a family life, and to be protected from harm and abuse. A children also has the right to share freely with others what they think or learn, either by drawing, talking, or writing. But the child rights cover the developmental and age-appropriate needs that changes over time as a child grows up. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Binta. Isa, can you please tell us who is the ideal model of a child?
Uh, Ideal model of a child. The ideal model of a child includes all adults in that child's society, especially the parents. Because there is a saying in Hausa that said, "Kyon ɗaya gaji babansa." So
Mm.
ideally, children have their parents as their role model. For some, they bear their relatives, some bear their teachers, some bear any adult in their society. They admire his style and as you know, they copy it. So this would bring the issue of safe and suitable environment for a child to grow up in this issue. So you know, like a child imitates what he sees.
Yeah.
So when a child sees bad behaviors and unacceptable behaviors in
Mm.
his society, he
Mm.
will surely copy it. But when he sees the unlikewise, that is when he sees good behaviors, acceptable ones, and moral and acceptable morals and discipline, he will surely imitate it.
That's
So
true.
that's all I have to say about the ideal model of a child. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much, Isa. Well, our characters and the characters we display outside, especially the parents, helps the child to be who he is today. When we display a good character, the child is going to grow up with good characters. When we display bad characters, the child is going to grow up with bad characters.
Of course.
Thank you very much, Isa. Ahmed, can you please tell us what is the ideal model of a child?
A child needs to be exposed to an ideal model for proper upbringing, but in some situations, he or she will grow without a model and by exposure to danger of abuse and harm. Your child just needs your unconditional love, support, and guidance to be successful in his endeavors. Do not make parenting tedious by making unrealistic boundaries and expectations. Above all, these children are targeted by traffickers. Children learn behavior in a number of ways, two of which are what they are told to do and what they see others do. Out of this, observational learning and mimicking how others act in a certain situation appears to be by far the most influential. Mimicking solidifies both behavior and gives way to thinking styles, motivation, and moral values. This is not only on psychological basis but biologically too. Neurological research has identified mirror cells in the brain which react strongly when a behavior is copied, forging neurological connections and further solidifying behaviors. And in addition to what Binta said about the rights of a child, a child has rights. A child has a right to life, rights to education, play and recreation, an adequate standard of living, and to be protected from harm and abuse. Child rights cover their developmental and age-appropriate needs as they grow up. When the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Convention on the Rights of a Child, the African Union Assembly Charter on the Rights of a Child on November 20, 1989, and in July 1990. Nigeria also signed and subsequently ratified. It was assumed that humanity was appropriately committed to secure its own future. But as of 2014, some states are yet to pass the bill into law. These includes Sokoto, Adamawa, Katsina, Kano, and the rest. This means that millions of children in these states still do not have appropriate legal framework for the protection of their rights. And still, in the states that have passed the bill into law, millions of children are not protected, are not being cared for as they are, because still the laws are not being fully implemented. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very enlightening. Isa, can you please elaborate more on the rights of a child?
Yes, of course. We also have conventions. After listing the fundamental rights of a child, just as done by my colleagues here, we also have conventions on the rights of a child. We have the 1999 ILO Convention on the Child Abuse, and we also have the 2000 UN Convention on Human Trafficking, especially for women and children. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isa. Ahmed, can you please tell us what's your call on government?
My call on government is that government should implement programs to protect and assist victims of child trafficking and abuse, and to capture and prosecute their traffickers according to the laws provided by the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons. And government should also implement joint task force among the ministries and departments. For example, the Ministry of Justice and the Nigerian Police Force and that of the NAPTIP should all come together in order to tackle and prevent child trafficking and abuse. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. Thank you. Minta, what's your call?
Well, my call to the stakeholders, I think they should find a way to create job opportunities to the poor individuals so as to eradicate poverty and to limit the level of human trafficking. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Binta. Isa,
Yes.
what's your call on government, traditional rulers?
I call on the government, the law enforcement agency, and the NAPTIP organization to ensure an intact security to the communities, especially for children. And I also call on the youth in several localities to maintain and observe the movement of children in that locality. When they see something, let them say something. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Isa, can you still have more points or more to say on preventions?
Okay? Just like I said, due to my call on government, the government, the law enforcement agency, and the NAPTIP organization should try their possible best to ensure intersecurity, as you know, to the children. And I also have something to say about the prevention of child abuse. Like I said earlier in my definition of child abuse, I listed forms of child abuse that includes the physical, the sexual, the neglect, the emotional, and even the child trafficking. I think the best and simple way to prevent child abuse is that all those infliction, all those cruel acts should be dropped aside and let a child live his fundamental rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank all of you for such a wonderful enlightenment. Well, viewers, I hope you have been attentive and you have been enlightened on child trafficking, and you have been touched to help stop child trafficking in our society, state, and country at large. We have all learned that not just our parents, but the members of the society, governments, and traditional rulers and religious leaders they all have a role to play in the child's present and future. This program is brought to you by El Bill Global Foundation in collaboration with Borno Radio Television Corporation. Every child has a fundamental right. Let's help stop child trafficking and abuse. Join us next time, same channel. Bye for now.